All right, and welcome back to another Indy Investor Pod. Super excited for my guest today, Elizabeth Sickels, and we're going to be talking all about Indiana State REIA and everything that's going on with that. So this is the Indy Investor Pod. I'm Brian Snyder, and this is where we like to just Indy investors talking Indy investing. So with that, let's get on with the show. All right, it's Brian, and it's back with another Indy Investor Pod. I am very excited to have Elizabeth Sickels on here with me today. And actually, this is going to be a little two-part episode, so I'm super excited about that. You were the first guest that we've had on here doing like a two-part episode, so
wow,
excited as well. So you're just a wealth of knowledge. So I was like, oh man, I know this is going to be two episodes like back to back. So let's just go ahead and book it and get it done. So how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. We have a gorgeous day in Indianapolis, and you can't beat that.
Yeah, I'll take it. So it looks like it's going to be pretty clear outside. I feel like today would be a good golf day. So that's what I'm thinking right now.
I like the way you think, Brian.
So, all right. So Elizabeth Sickels, you are the president of Indiana State REIA. So for anybody that doesn't know what that is, what you guys do, can you kind of just give us like a synopsis of like, hey, who you are, what you guys are doing, how it came about, like that type of thing?
Absolutely. So we're one of only 5 states that have an actual state organization for the Real Estate Investors Association, for real estate investors. And so who we are for any and all housing providers. So you're going to be hearing that terminology a lot, is housing providers instead of real estate investors. And the reason is because everything going on right now, real estate investors, even though we have a lot of great investors, they just have such a negative connotation. So just be aware of that. We're going to be changing our marketing moving forward as well. And so we're really here to support those who are doing real estate the right way. So last year, we've been around for 3 years. So we're still very brand new, just trying to figure everything out.
So no, that's awesome. So then why did you guys, basically why did it get formed, and kind of what are you guys looking to do? Or actually maybe we can just start with kind of what are some things that you guys have done over the last couple of years since you said you guys started up 3 years ago. So what are some things that you guys have kind of put in place or helped out with?
Sure, absolutely. One of the things, which this is really a kudos, I wasn't on the board whenever they started this, but last year we actually got legislation passed through. So at the time we were only 2 years old, and that was House Bill 1347. And what it says is that landlords or housing providers are not responsible for paying your tenants' utility bills. So it's kind of crazy that we have to do a law about that, but we did. So there were some major issues, and actually some smaller towns here in Indiana where that was happening, where the landlords were getting the bills for their tenants' utilities.
Right. So that was huge, because that was one of the things that, coming out, I know Barkersville was one of the cities like right here in close to Indianapolis. So I know a lot of housing providers or investors here in Indianapolis, they invest down in Barkersville. So that it did affect them. And it was, a lot of other cities were looking to do that same thing. So because of that, basically we're as investors, we're not responsible for the utility bills and things from the tenants, which is outstanding. So let's talk a little bit about, so you just took over as president this year, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Number one, congratulations on that. I was very excited to hear that. So great stuff. So let's talk about like kind of the makeup of Indiana State REIA. So who all, maybe is there a board, or who kind of, I guess, serves and helps out the most, and then kind of what kind of people should join Indiana State REIA, or what kind of people should look to, hey, how do I get involved, that type of thing?
Sure. And let me just say too that we're much different than your normal REIA, your local real estate investors association, in the fact that we're a 501c6, which means that we can lobby. So that's huge. That's the big advantage that we have. And just another reason why we formed even 3 years ago, I was not part of the founding folks, but was because there's all types of legislation going on all over the U.S. that we do not want to come to Indianapolis or Indiana as a whole. So for example, in Seattle, you cannot evict a tenant during the winter months. So that is, and you think that's crazy, and that would never happen in Indiana because we're more friendly to investors. However, we have the eviction moratorium going on right now. So right now we're playing a lot of defense, where we want to get, as we get more funding and we do more fundraising, is to playing offense. So our makeup of the board, we have 5 board members from all over the state. Central Indiana, Northern Indiana, and then we're actually looking to add some people from Southern Indiana as well. These are all investors or housing providers, and they do all types of different investing. Some of them are commercial, they're residential landlords, note buyers, just a little bit flippers as well. So a really nice demographic and kind of rounds out the real estate investing world.
Yeah. So as an investor or housing provider myself, like or anybody else that's out there, like, hey, how do I get involved? How do I join? What do I do for that? So what do you say to those people?
We need your help.
Yes.
Number one, for sure. I just had a call actually before this meeting, and we would love to have a secretary on the site. So where we need help is in a couple of different areas. Is that we do need volunteers. We've also just hired a fundraiser. So our goal is to raise $100,000. We do have a lawsuit going on right now regarding the eviction moratorium that Governor Holcomb put into place. There are a lot of different issues with it. Number one, it's unconstitutional. He's overreached his power as the governor. And the real problem is that it's hurting our housing providers who, especially the smaller ones who only have a few properties, and if their tenants aren't paying, they can't pay the mortgage, they can't pay the taxes. So it's really, a delicate situation, and that's why we have filed the lawsuit. Jeff Jinks is our lawyer, so he's the one that filed it. He had some really brave souls that said, hey, we want to go through with this. So we're fundraising for that. So we're very happy to receive both monetary donations and as well as people are able to provide their time. And we do have a website. I will just caveat, we are working on our website.
So no notes on their website. They know they're going to fix it. They're going to work on it. No big deal. But the information on there and how to get involved is the most important thing. So, all right. So let's talk about that of where do they go and how do they go about like getting on your website and that type of stuff?
Absolutely. It's Indiana State REIA. So REIA.org. And it's all of that spelled out. You can see what we're doing. You can see the donate now. You can get in contact with us if you'd like to volunteer. If you have website skills, we would love to talk with you. It's just our website just needs to look like it's 2020 is what we're working on. So.
Yeah. And I always like to tell people too, when it comes to getting involved with, organizations like this or groups like this, or whether even if it's, a smaller REIA and not a whole state REIA, whatever it is, I would say just start off by volunteering because that's the best way to network. That's the best way to get in good with somebody like yourself, the president of the organization, of just like, hey, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to help out. Best place to network, best place to just meet people and also just learn more about what is going on and kind of just, like I said, get to put yourself out there as well, just by helping. So really good opportunities right there. So jump on the website for all the information that they're putting out there, but then also you can get involved and volunteer as well. And if you have those website skills, you can jump on there and be like, oh man, I wish they would do this. You can do it. You can help them out with it.
We would love that.
No, so very cool. So I know that, and we just had this conversation literally right before we jumped on of like, hey, when should we air this episode? I usually like to kind of stay maybe a little bit ahead on my episodes, but I also have the advantage of like, hey, if I need to put one out tomorrow, I can. And I know we're going to have an episode come out tomorrow, and we said, hey, let's put this one out because I do want to dig into a little bit more of what's going on with the lawsuit against the governor about the evictions and kind of what's going on, because the evictions apparently, this is the 12th where this will come out on the 13th. The evictions, we're supposed to be able to start filing for evictions on the 14th. Right now, that's the way things are looking. So can you just give us some insight of kind of, and really maybe we can even just dig into like, hey, how is this constitutional? Like how do investors and housing providers need to stand up kind of for their rights and what they need to be thinking about and all that stuff. I think a lot of people just, when you hear an investor or a landlord and things like that, a lot of people think of like, oh, every landlord has like 100 houses. They have a ton of money coming in. And that's not the case. A lot of people maybe just have, 2 or 3 houses that's their income. They're relying on that income too. So when people aren't paying, their rent, it affects a lot of people all the way around the board. Even people that have the larger, they have a large portfolio. They have a lot, all that stuff. They have employees that they need to pay. They have their property managers they need to pay. They have all that stuff too. So there's a lot of things at play here. And then also there are the tenants that we need to make sure like, hey, are they provided for? Are they okay? Are they safe? Are they healthy? All that kind of stuff. That is very important as well. So let's kind of just dig into kind of where this stands right now. What's as housing providers, investors, landlords, whoever, what can we kind of expect, on Friday when this apparently just opens back up?
Right. And thank you for saying that it affects the larger housing providers
Mhm.
also, because everybody has a payroll, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has people they have to pay. Um, so what we think is going to happen is that Holcomb will honor the fact that August the 14th, well, so starting Monday, that we will be able to file evictions where they need to be filed. We do know for a fact that the lawsuit, whenever it was officially filed, that it did have an effect on the moratorium. So as far as not extending it further. So we don't know what's going to happen on Monday, but what it gives for our housing providers and for all of our investors is to know that we are fighting for your rights. Just one other thing I want to mention too that's going on, and I apologize, I forget what state it's in, but they're trying to make it so that you do not have to put a deposit down at the security deposit for a tenant. So
Interesting.
again, yes, there's all these crazy things going on. So back to the moratorium. So we do think that we will be able to start filing, but we don't know what could happen because right now we're just in the very initial stages of this lawsuit. Some of the things that could happen is that it could turn into a class action lawsuit if we have to go that way. If we do have to do that, it depends on a lot of federal laws and some other things that would come into play. What that means is just that we would have to have more money to make it, to make it that type of a lawsuit. So we're kind of in limbo ourselves. This was the first time that whenever Jeff Jenks, who's a fantastic attorney, when they filed this, they had to go through a lot of hoops because nobody has sued for this type of a thing before. So everybody's just kind of learning as we go. But our big stance is the fact that we are here for the investors, for those that are doing it the right way. And we definitely need their help, whether you're big or small. We have a lot of out-of-state investors here in Indiana, and we need them also. So that's what we're going for.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean to put you on the spot at all with this question or anything, but do you have any advice for, because that's the thing of like, I feel like if we are able to file for eviction and everything on Monday and able to go actually file with the courts and stuff like that, like it's going to be like opening the floodgates where it's going to be, there are a lot of them. I know we have about 24 doors right now, but I have 3 properties that they haven't been paying for multiple months that I'm going to like, they know like, hey, I'm going to have to file eviction on you. Like we've had that conversation multiple times. They know it's coming. But and that's actually a pretty good, like, I feel like we're in good shape with what we've had with our 24 doors. So when we're looking at, like I said, kind of the opening of the floodgates or investors, everybody filing for eviction and things like that, do you have just any advice on kind of, maybe how to go about that, or even just like maybe expectations of what you guys foresee possibly happening since there are going to be so many, and how the court's going to handle it and all that stuff?
Sure. So my first piece of advice is to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row.
Yeah.
All of your paperwork is correct. If you hire a lawyer, that that they're doing everything properly, because if it's not documented, you're going to be thrown out very quickly. So that's the first thing. Just make sure your documentation is right. And then in some cases, in one of the southern counties here in Indiana, they're allowing people to go ahead and do kind of like a pre-filing. So check with your local courts to see if you can do that so that you can be at the top of the list whenever the doors do open for it.
Yeah. So yeah, great advice there. So thank you for that. When we're getting into, let's kind of just get back to Indiana State REIA in general, kind of what you guys are looking to do and things. So what's on the horizon? Like what's kind of next? What's that? I know the eviction thing's probably taking up a lot of headspace, a lot of time, and a lot of things like that, which, because it is so important and so big, it affects so many different people in so many different ways. What else is, kind of coming around the corner of like, hey, we need to be aware of this. We need to look out for this. Like, what are some of those things that you guys foresee?
One of them is the fact that in Seattle that you can't evict tenants in the wintertime. So right now we're playing defense, right? I mean, this was just, for everybody, whenever COVID hit. So what our plan is, Brian, is that we want to be on offense. So, and our marketing is going to be a lot of sports analogies because people understand it.
Right.
So, um, so we have talks on things that we need to protect for in the future, such as that, and such as saying yes, that landlords can, landlords can set, number one, their own rents. They can set their own security deposits, because if you don't think that our freedoms are being attacked on all fronts, um, they are.
Yeah.
So that's our plan. We want to be organized enough, and just to be able, again, to be on the forefront of all of that. Because I love Indiana, and I want other people to obviously to love Indiana and to continue to invest here, because it is a great place.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and all this stuff is very effective. So you have a city like Indianapolis where it really is kind of almost 50% of homeowners to people that are renting properties. So there is a heavy rental population here. So the rights are important for them and things like that too. But what are some things? So, we sit around and talk, and it's like, man, could you, like, not being able to evict somebody in the wintertime? Like, what's the deal? Like, sometimes it's, 60 degrees in January and you can go play golf. Like, why can't I evict somebody during that time? Or, whatever it may be. So what are some things that, whether it's what we're hearing here in Indianapolis or Indiana or some of the other states, what are some things that people are saying of, like, why would this make sense of, like, hey, no, you shouldn't be able to evict somebody here, or no, a tenant shouldn't have to put down a security deposit. Like, what are some things that people are saying, like, in defense of those types of things?
Mhm. So one of the things we have is an organization called the Eviction Lab. So they're funded by Zuckerberg, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and by a couple of other really big names. And it's fueling a lot of just this insanity, so to speak, with housing providers. So one of their statistics is that there's going to be a 40% eviction rate in the United States. Out of all of the people I've talked to, and even with yourselves, with your 3 out of the 24 properties.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So that we're not anywhere close to 40%.
Right.
So what these people have done is they've twisted they're lying. I mean, it's flat out lies. So people are thinking, oh, well, we can't evict somebody in the wintertime because, well, what if they have kids? Well, what if they have pets? Well, somebody's got to pay the bill at the end of the day. You signed on the line saying that you would pay, and certainly we understand that things happen, but I can't understand all of their rationale, because I think if you say you're going to pay a bill, you need to pay a bill. That's just what I think. So I think part of it is just an overall difference in philosophies and in responsibility that people have for themselves, and then whenever they are given completely false information, even now, with that, everything's saying, oh, it's the 40% eviction rate. So then we would think, if we're not investors, we're thinking, oh my gosh, well, what are all these people going to do? Where are they going to live? Well, they're going to be in the streets. Well, what about their kids? Well, what about this? Well, what about that? So I think people just get extremely emotional, and they get really concerned about things instead of really looking at the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So we're diving into the facts for the state of Indiana, actually, on how many tenants we have, how many evictions are actually happening pre-COVID here in the state. So when we use actual facts, that's where we think that we're going to win. And when we can actually present this to people and say, hey, this is what's really going on. And, while we do have great tenants that, maybe can't pay for whatever reason, as long as they work with the landlord, that's the other thing too, is people aren't looking at that side of it. All of the landlords that are willing, and housing providers, because I have to remind myself to use that new terminology, is that there are a lot of really great people in the world, and especially here in the U.S. So we just have to know the facts and present pure, true facts.
Yeah. So no, that's great. That's awesome stuff. And I think it's, you've touched on a couple of really things there that I think are really important. Are make sure that you as a landlord, you are communicating with your tenant, and you are, providing with chances and things. And that's usually the case in this scenario of all these people that, like, I know one of ours, tenants, just kind of speaking about our stuff, is that, like, we just had one tenant flat out say, like, well, you can't do anything to me, so I'm not going to pay. Like, and that's, so I'm like, all right, I tried cash for keys. I tried to do everything else. I tried to do anything I could and work with him and just see if he would just help us out in any way. And it's not going to be there. So there are the people out there like, hey, nope, I'm going to this is the system right now. I'm going to take advantage of it, and you are going to have to evict me. I'll probably get another month out of it because it's going to be backed up, and that's the rationale. So there are the people out there that are thinking like that, but then we have the tenants too that are just like, hey, I did lose my job. I'm applying for assistance here, applying for assistance there. We've given them programs to go out to and things, and it's just like, hey, as long as they're making the effort, they'll get caught up eventually. We can put them on a payment plan. There's a lot of tenants that are out there that are, being proactive about what they need to do as well. So it's all across the board of what we have. And it's just, I love the fact that you guys are taking the real numbers, the real data to put that out in front of like, this is really what's going on, this situation. And it needs to be solved in some way. So that's great. So, so what are some last little things here? We got a few minutes left here just to kind of dive into in-state REIA and kind of what's going on. So what's is that person that is maybe, let's look at like maybe a new investor, they're starting to get into investing here in Indianapolis or being a housing provider here in Indianapolis. So what are some things that, like, some advice you'd have for them of, hey, how should you maybe kind of educate yourself, or how can you get involved in in-state REIA? How can you kind of see what's going on? Some things you need to be careful of. If I'm an investor, if I'm looking to, pick up a rent or start being a landlord here in Indianapolis, how can in-state REIA help me? Or what are some things I need to, like, resources that they provide that I know I can be ahead of the game, and I know I can be proactive when it comes to knowing what I need to be careful of and that type of thing?
Absolutely. So the first thing is to become a member of Indiana State REIA. Our membership is very inexpensive. All our money right now is going to keeping the organization going as far as the lawsuit and just administrative costs. So of course, none of the board members, it's all voluntary. So become a member. We send out email information on, we'll be giving updates both of the lawsuit and the things that are going on in the background as well. And then if you do have, that time capacity, please email me directly. My email is on the website. It's president@indianastaterea.org as well. So, just get involved with us. And then just for investors, especially if you're new investors, no matter where you're going to be doing it, is to run your numbers. It drives me crazy that the only thing people look at is cash flow, because it's not always about cash flow. It's also about, hey, what's the depreciation? Do you have a tax benefit there? Principal reduction. So what are your finances? Because everybody's different. What do you really need? Because it might not be cash flow. Maybe it's the appreciation that you need. So the numbers are really fun. So just make sure that you know the numbers whenever you're investing.
That's awesome. And I know we'll get into that on episode number 2 with you here in a second on just the Airbnbs and what's going on over there, because you're known as like the Airbnb queen here in Indianapolis and stuff. So no, I'm excited to jump into that stuff with you and talk a little bit more on that front and things. Thank you so much for the information about in-state REIA, kind of what's going on. Any last little tip or anything else, little thing you want to throw out there about Indiana State REIA before we jump off of here?
I would say just be aware, watch out for us, because we're playing defense, but we're going to be playing defense, and we'd love for you to be part of our team.
I love all the sports metaphors and sports sayings, because as the Big Ten football gets canceled and things like that, at least we'll talk sports. We'll talk, we might not be able to talk about the actual sport, but we can just use sports lingo. So good stuff. So, all right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me. And then we'll jump on here in a second for episode number 2 with you. Take care.
Excellent. Thank you.